The number of hardpoints in this game is absolutely mind-boggling. This video will go over every single one with some basic information and some more advanced tips. So whether you've played for 3 hours or 3,000, I guarantee you'll learn something useful in this video. Before we begin, I'll quickly cover some Hardpoint Basics. There are 13 types of standard hardpoint available to buy in Elite Dangerous. The majority of these come in a range of sizes from 1, or small, to 4, or huge. Generally speaking, a larger hardpoint does far more damage than a smaller one, but costs more and requires a larger hardpoint mount. Also, a hardpoint can have different amounts of aim assist. There's fixed, where the aiming is entirely up to you, gimbaled, which gives you a little help, and turreted, which aims entirely on its own. The downside of this aim assist is a higher module cost and a steep reduction in your damage output. This means it's a good idea to go for fixed or gimbaled once you've got the skill for it. One more thing before we start. There are 2 categories of hardpoint that I won't cover in this video. Mining tools, because they're obviously for mining, which I've already done these 2 videos on, and experimental, which are designed for use against Thargoids. These definitely merit a video of their own. With that bit out of the way, let's get started. You've probably seen one of these before. This module is so basic that every new ship you buy comes fitted with one for free. As a laser weapon, it deals thermal damage, meaning it's most effective against a target's shields. Pulse lasers have a relatively low power draw, come in all sizes, and are cheap to buy. On the other hand, they deal relatively little damage, and what they can dish out is next to useless against an enemy's hull. For this and every other hardpoint, check out the bottom left of the screen to see my suggested pairings and engineering recommendations. Basically, the middle child of the laser family. Like the pulse laser, it's mainly useful for stripping away shields, but the extra power means it can start to tear into the bulkheads as well. It has a middle-of-the-road power draw, and the same can be said of its damage output. Burst lasers also come in all configurations and are relatively inexpensive. If you've got no idea where to start with hardpoints, the safest bet you can make is using these paired with multi-cannons or seeker missiles. Simple but effective and perfect for learning the ropes. Now this is a laser. The beam delivers a continuous blast of energy at the target, dealing huge amounts of thermal damage that can easily disintegrate shields and start to carve up the bulkheads. The beam laser is available in all configurations, but can be a little costly early in the game. They also have a rather large power draw, draining your capacitor insanely quickly if you're not careful with your pips. It's also worth mentioning the thermal vent experimental effect that can be added to a beam laser with engineering. When you fire a thermal vent beam, your ship's heat is transferred into your target, allowing you to effectively cool the ship without the use of a heatsink. These are pretty simple. They're a machine gun for your spaceship. Multi-cannons deal kinetic damage, which is good for ripping through the hull of a target after their shields are down. They're cheap, come in every configuration, and are easy to use. On the negative side, they don't do tons of damage, and I find them a little boring compared to some other options. Of course, both these drawbacks can be rectified with engineering, and the plethora of experimental effects you can stick on these can turn a boring old multi into the most devastating tool in the conflict zone. You'd imagine a hardpoint simply called cannon would be pretty basic, but these are actually quite specialised. They do kinetic damage like the multi, but less overall damage, and have a small clip size that takes ages to reload. So why use them? Their advantage is their excellent armour piercing. This allows you to hit a target's vital modules rather than just attacking their hull. Cannons are available in all sizes and levels of aim assist, but because of this armour piercing speciality, it's recommended to use fixed cannons, which does require quite a steep learning curve. If you're just starting out, I might recommend using an alternative to the cannon for now. They can be devastatingly effective, but only if used correctly and in the appropriate build. It's time for frags. Everyone loves these, they're unbelievably fun. Rather than a single projectile, a fragment cannon fires 12 small pellets in a cone shape each time you pull the trigger. This leads to an insane theoretical damage output. The problems here are the spread of that damage and the significant jitter that this hardpoint comes with. For these reasons, most of the damage will be useless unless you fire within about 200 meters of a target. So they are quite limiting, but if you're willing to play to their strengths, frag cannons can be insanely good options for burst damage. You won't be surprised to learn that these deal explosive damage, which is catastrophically effective against hull, but largely useless against shields. There are 2 variants of missiles, dumbfire and seeker. I'm sure you can work out the differences, but in short, dumbfire shoot in a straight line, and seekers fly toward a target automatically, in exchange for a reduced amount of damage, shot speed, ammo capacity, and clip size. Seeker missiles are also amazing for disabling modules, as they do the aiming entirely for you. This is especially useful for Piracy, as shown in this video, linked in the corner and the description. I'm not gonna lie, I find these a bit confusing. Like a seeker missile, they fire an explosive charge that seeks the target, and they do some extra damage, which is really nice. The only problem is the ammo capacity. On a medium-sized pylon, like I tried, I had 2 shots. In total. Now, I'm not the most imaginative person in the world, but I can't think of a single situation where these would be a good choice. So unless you've discovered an insanely good use for torpedoes, I'd probably suggest taking a seeker missile rack instead. Rather than a propelled explosive, a mine is launched from your ship and slows down until it becomes stationary. If a ship crashes into it, that's when it explodes. The traditional use of these is to launch them in front of an enemy while they're following you. This makes them a possibility for trade ships, using the mines to deter pirates. Of course, you can use these in a combat setting, but you'll need to adapt your flying and firing styles to suit them. Now we're on to the most juicy hardpoints. The railgun shoots a projectile, but at such blistering speeds that most of its damage is thermal, the rest being kinetic. Any experienced player will tell you that a well-flown ship festooned with railguns is a devastating combination, stripping shields in seconds. They also boast amazing armour piercing, letting you easily deal module damage. On the downside, they take a lot of power and generate loads of heat. Crucially, they are only available as a fixed hardpoint. This alone massively restricts their usage to newer players, but if you'd like to learn to use fixed, then rails are a great way to get stuck in. Once you learn to use them, plasma accelerators are, in my view, the most fun hardpoint. These things fire slugs of plasma, dealing 3 kinds of damage. 20% is thermal, 20% is kinetic, and the other 60 is absolute. This type of damage ignores all resistances, which is very handy against a highly engineered target. Even ignoring the types of damage, the amount of brute force the PA packs is ridiculous. So, what's the drawbacks? Well, they generate loads of heat and take tons of power, and they're only available as a fixed hardpoint like the railguns. But the plasmas have the added difficulty of a relatively low shot speed, making aiming an absolute nightmare when you first get them. Here's a quick tip to help with that frustration. When you're lining up a shot with the PA, aim at this circle rather than the target ship itself. As long as the target's trajectory stays roughly the same, your shot will land. Obviously, you're more likely to hit at close range, since the target has less time to evade. So, there we go, every standard hardpoint in the game. I hope this helps you put your next combat ship together. But once you built it, what can you use it for other than just earning credits? Why not check out this video for the answer? As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, it's goodbye from Commander Dituri.